Welcome back, everybody. It's the Comics Aficionados. I'm in the house, and it's a retailer special. The entire panel is comic book retailers and some contributors. Obviously, these guys are contributors to the channel. First off, we've got the Raging Cajun from Massachusetts, Larry's Comics. How you doing?
Hey, Wes. Thanks for having me on. I'm ready to go in my filthy cellar. Let's do this,
dude. I'm digging the ceiling. I just want to point that out there. And next up, we've got all the way from Berkeley, California, the heel himself, the heel persona of Thinking Critical, Heel Yule in the house. How you doing?
I'm wonderful. Thanks for having me on. This is going to be fun.
Yes, this should be a very interesting conversation. Also with us is the curmudgeon of Critical himself, Just Pele. How you doing?
Good. I've got my biscuits. I'm good. We're gonna talk.
As long as you got your biscuits and gravy. Also with us from the Great Northwest, we've got the Poobah himself, Comics Perch. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Glad to be here. Fun panel today.
Yes, and we are also supposed to have Michael Tierney from Little Rock, Arkansas. He's supposed to be here, but I have not seen him yet. So if you see Michael, tell him we're expecting him here on the panel today. Hopefully he gets to show up because he is a wonderful comic book creator as well as a comic store owner. Today we're going to talk about some of the fallout from all the changes that DC enacted, during the pandemic shutdown. Obviously, now we're getting a good feel of some of the feedback. Sounds like Lunar's doing a very good job. There are a lot of continued frustrations pointed over at Diamond Comics, but it's starting to sound like maybe UCS is not doing the best job so far coming into the industry. Larry, are you with UCS?
I got my books on Thursday. No shortages, no damages, tons of promo material. What's the problem? What's the problem with UCS? People just like to
you
complain,
were not. Some people had some horror stories. I'm actually going to have another retailer. I believe it's on Tuesday. I'm going to have a conversation with him. I guess his relationship with UCS has been an abject disaster in his mind, but that should be interesting. So a lot of things have happened since all this has gone down. Larry, I know you are a big proponent of Diamond Comics and the comic book angel himself, Mr. Steve Geppi. What are your thoughts now that we've kind of got some time to see how things have happened? Do you think some of these changes were good? Are you still
I don't see the sweet comic angel making it out of this year. The company is in disarray. They're hiring temps. Books are arriving smashed. I don't know if I told you guys the story about the Marvel Omnibus sale. I had ordered a couple pallets of Marvel Omnibuses. I couldn't get a tracking number from from Diamond. I don't have a rep. Finally, I got a tracking number, and they arrived in July out at a store in California. When I investigated with the trucking company, it wasn't just my pallets of omnibuses that were shipped to a store in California. It was 18 other pallets. So a new Diamond rep sent 18 pallets via tractor trailer to California. That's not shipping a damaged book. That's not shipping a shortage. They're making real fucking mistakes that I can't see how they spin out of this. Every single person that I talk to has troubles every single week. They're not. The comeback is tough. I mean, my heart is with Geppi and Diamond. I'd love to see them pull it out, but they got a mountain to climb. Not to mention, I've heard that another publisher is going to be switching to the other distributors, and it's supposed to be announced this week. And I got a good idea who it is based on retailers on a forum. I think that IDW was that publisher that's going to be switching to the new distributor.
And boom! I'm sorry, I had something caught. Excuse me.
I didn't hear anything about Boom.
I've heard a lot of chatter this week about IDW and Boom. I wouldn't be surprised if during the San Diego Comic Con we see both, or one or the other. I think
I'm going to ask Ross.
Yep.
Yeah.
About those omnibuses, I ordered a few of them. Not quite as many as Larry. And if that thing came to California, it didn't stop at my place. I got one of the few that I ordered.
Well, I mentioned to you what store had got them. You know, how does a tractor trailer arrive at your store, and how do you accept 18 pallets of books? I mean, that's crazy.
Right. I mean, half the time getting them to get it off the lift or off the truck is hard enough anyway. Then you got to do 18 of them.
The big sale that Marvel was doing on their omnibuses.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. I look forward to it every year.
Yeah, that's a big boom for your shop. You know, you get more bang for your buck, right?
Oh, I pass the savings on to my customers, and they look forward to it and love it. You know, it's great. They just had a 95% off trade paperback sale, and I hope my pallets of those don't go to friggin' Utah.
We got in about 60% of our order, and the rest of them are showing as delivered, but we've not gotten them. So I'm still trying to figure out what the hell's going on.
Nothing I've ordered has even filled Pele, so you're ahead of the game, man. That's cool.
But
Perch, it sounds like you're the enviable position of like waiting on the store.
Yeah, exactly. I get to see how it all works out. But I mean, I still have a little money into the guys up in Linwood, and I think there's a couple different shops in the area, but it is consistent, at least up here. Diamond is it seems like the quality has gone down, and it's Larry, I think, hit on it. It feels like it's moved from maybe, this isn't the right word, but maybe like excusable mistakes. I don't think they're excusable, to more incompetence. There's been a shift. It's gotten worse in a dumber way, if that makes any sense. It just, them missing orders and damaging comics and these kinds of things were not okay before, but it seemed a little bit more random. Now it seems a little bit. Maybe it's what he said. They've hired temps, or I don't know what's going on, but it has the feeling of incompetence really strong right now.
I believe Ryan Wilson, who's in the comments right now, he works in the vicinity of a diamond warehouse, and he has some information on that, and he says that they're very incompetent. That's what I got out of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's never been. I don't know that it's ever been stellar reviews in a lot of cases. There's been good people who've worked there, sure, but the part that is hard to wrap your head around is there was a break. There was kind of a black eye suffered with these new distributors coming in. A lot of people were suddenly talking about diamond and distribution and how it was people were PO'd about it before. But then it all came to the surface. Everybody is angry as things are shut down. And so they come back, they make a big deal about back to come back. Steve Geppi does his tour. And then this is the foot you put forward. It's like, way to lean into all those complaints. You're making everything people complained about valid, where some of that stuff was just people venting frustration, but you validated a bunch of it. It's not a good sign. I'd be surprised if they're out this year. That would be pretty catastrophic, but it doesn't look good. I'm with Larry there. This doesn't look like anything that's going to be around for multiple years. And conversely, I think the Diamond or Lunar and UCS, while there are troubles, it is. I guess I was expecting these kinds of troubles. So in many cases, Lunar exceeded expectations, and UCS kind of delivered their expectations. If that makes any sense.
UCS has been superb up here. And one thing I'd like to say about the Diamond thing is consistently across the board, people who service out of Plattsburgh usually have no trouble. Plattsburgh is a warehouse run by comic book professionals. When Diamond expanded and did the other warehouses, those are the ones where you just step on a fucking landmine anytime you get anything from them. I mean, they hire temps. They don't know how to handle product. They all shove stuff in boxes with sausage fingers. I mean, it's terrible.
Yeah. And it feels like a lot of the centers have all normalized around that. And your experience, he says, I don't know. I've heard wildly different stories. I'm curious to hear your guest next week, Wes. But I don't hear. I don't know. I'd like to get more details around UCS and exactly what people are having trouble with, because I've heard very glowing reviews. I've heard some people who are frustrated. A little bit.
Well, what I understand from one of my friends who's who's a comic shop owner in Virginia, and working with UCS, is that getting the orders wrong, getting misships, and getting orders shorted, getting shorted on orders. And I think a lot of it comes from the fact that some people haven't either adapted to the software properly, or there is some communication error. So it's something in that. But I think it's still a situation where they're still working, and the software is not great. So, but once they get that ironed out, I think a lot of that will be fixed.
What software? It's a monkey see, monkey do. Plug in a number system. It's simple. Yeah. And another thing they've done is for shortages, damages, and overages, they've added right on their portal, when you get your invoice, there's a monkey see, monkey do button to click. And you don't even have to call anybody. You just submit. Yeah. 2 weeks ago, I was short 2 trade paperbacks. I got them in. I've been able to get the fill-in boxes to spaz out accidentally. It happens with certain video cards, and it happens when you scroll in certain ways. And I think that a 10 can turn into a 100, or a 100 can turn into a 10, or a 50 can turn into a 5. It's just some strange, buggy stuff going on.
Gotta be out of that field.
Getting the books on Thursday. I love them. Love them. That's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. 5 days before Diamond for me to fill my orders. That alone, what's that worth to a retailer? Come on.
But now, subsequently, Lunar is going to. Well, I don't know. Oh, I guess it's DC altogether. They're going to have a final order cutoff now on Friday instead of Monday, from what I understand. So I've heard
to get
people
my books early. Fuck yeah.
Well, see, I've heard people bitching that, I don't have all those days of sales like I normally would over the weekend before I have to do my final order cutoff. But I mean, it's just that 1 week, really. Once you start shifting when you're doing the accounting, it's not that big a deal.
I don't know that impacts. I mean, at that point, you're so close to the window. I'm always curious by people who complain about things like that, because it's like if you're running it that close that you need Saturday and Sunday for that data for final cutoff, I mean, you're running a strange business in my mind.
Well, the one thing I'll say is, though, my best days are Wednesday, and then the second best day would be Saturday, and then the other ones fight for viability.
Right.
Sure.
70-20.
Sure.
I can understand if I'm placing my order by Friday and I don't have all the Saturday, but you still know. I mean, after 2 or 3 months of continually selling the same stuff, you kind of have an idea.
No, exactly. I mean, you have weekend sales, but that's right up against the window. You'd have previous weeks, you'd have previous data. I don't know that I don't see it. But I guess what the experience, like Pele was talking about with the website and other things. I mean, we expected, at least I expected, both Lunar and UCS. You have a new system, you have new software, you have something to get familiar with. You're going to have scale against these tools, so you may have issues. You'll have some people who it's familiar to them because it reminds them of some other tool they're using. They'll probably adapt very quickly, and other people who are getting something. You expect that kind of churn, and if that's all we're talking about, that's expected. It's the question then becomes, can maybe the website be adapted a little bit, or people be used to it? I would suspect yes. So we'll see. I don't want to say all these problems are user error. It's not that, but I do think there's a learning curve for both sides, and this doesn't feel abnormal.
So we do have a couple of comments from viewers where they were talking about these issues, and I believe they're talking about UCS and these specifically. Although I believe Club Cosplay is actually in California, so his might actually be Lunar. And these are two comments. The first is from Club Cosplay, the Nerds Nightclub. My LCS is having trouble getting their account set up and still haven't gotten DC Comics. And this is from George Randa. He says, my LCS told me that he's having problems getting reorders with DC's new services.
Yeah, there are new reorders. The model for DC Comics has changed entirely. Their philosophy now is they want to keep their revenue stream from periodicals going with their new 2 cheap distributors. They're just printing to order, and they're focusing on They're focusing on courting the book market and Scholastic right now. They're just maintaining the status quo with periodicals. They are the two new distributors don't even have mechanism for storing all the back issues. They're only servicing the top 100 trade paperbacks. DC books are going to hold their value. I don't know if any of you guys have noticed. Try to find recent DC back issues on middling titles right now. They don't exist. I mean, I've been trying to find Doom Patrol 7s for 2 weeks now. You know what I mean? Calling everybody.
I got some for you.
Oh, thank you very much. And I will hook you with whatever you need.
All right.
But comic book retailers complaining about something. You guys got to admit, this is an industry of whiners. Nobody's proactive. They just want everything, handed to them on a silver platter. It's a very, very, very lazy and
entitled,
complaining. Entitled
the one thing I would like, Larry, is what I order. That's the most important thing.
I 100% get that.
But yeah, you're right. Whining is the thing in comic books all over the place.
Yeah, things should be able to arrive in good shape, and they should be able to arrive at what you order. And if you have a problem, you should be able to get to a human being at some point. I think those things are reasonable. And I do know that there were problems with getting the account set up. I do know that there was some scale problems on the website, and and again, it's probably confusing for a lot of people who haven't set up an account maybe ever, or at least in the last 20 years. So I think these problems are legit. I think that I think at Lunar there was when this first started, there was not enough help. In some cases, there were fields that made no sense to people when they were setting things up, and there wasn't somebody you could easily ask questions to, and then the deadline hit. So there are those kinds of problems, and I'm not hand waving those away, but those are reasonable things you'd expect when introducing new people into the mix. I think the fact that they haven't, we haven't seen Midtown suddenly running around stealing comics from people, and we haven't seen books arrive, blown up and shredded is sadly it's a good sign.
I also got a reorder on a hot book 2 weeks ago. Batman Adventures 2 contained the first appearance of Deathstroke's new protege, and it
Jason Todd.
It shipped sold out. I forget the name of the character, but that's one of the things I was worried about. If a book gained some back issue momentum, if Midtown was going to take all the extras for themselves, and they filled a sizable back order for me. So as of right now, that's not an issue.
Yeah, I think one of the main problems, as far as we saw with new orders, with new accounts, is that Diamond was very flexible about who they gave new accounts, and they were very easy, kind of almost too easy to work with, as far as
it's a problem with the industry.
Who could order and who could make a COD order or something like that, and you got comic shop owners. And this is not to disparage anybody, but this is what I've literally heard. My sales reps we've got people who the only thing that they've ever done in their life financially is they have a Kroger rewards card and a PayPal account, and and now they want to order $5,000 worth of books and have them delivered to their to an unmarked address or something like that. We have a lot of issues with that. So and they're saying, well, Diamond would do it, and I was like, we're not Diamond. We don't have experience with you. So there's a lot of issues going on there. A lot of it, but what I understand is a lot of people who are not financially, I won't say set up, but not financially adept. They're not people who have set up accounts and stuff like that with banks and things of that nature, and they're running into a lot of problems getting terms or even just getting COD authorization. So there's a lot there to juggle for any new company.
I think it's overall, and this is maybe something people don't want to hear, but if you're trying to stabilize the industry, we need to provide more sources. I believe that fully. You can't have a single choke point, single point of failure. So in doing that, you have to bring new people into the mix. If you bring new people into the mix, there's going to be issues, there's going to be growing pains, there's going to be problems, and it's in our best interest to try and work through them. The thing that we should be worried about is to say, are problems that are being brought up getting addressed, or are they getting ignored? If they're getting addressed, that's good, that's healthy. And it's frankly, it's better than what the comic industry has been giving us for the last 30 years. if they're being ignored, that's more of the same. And then I'm disappointed that we're just kind of wandering back to the same circle again.
Exactly. Yeah.
But I'm hoping that, whenever you add something new, it's going to create churn. It absolutely is going to. And so, we should expect it. We should plan for it. We should work around it and add feedback where we can. And that's what makes a healthy industry.
I think one of the things that we can do as comic store owners is try to help out a lot of the smaller shops and not really look at them as really our competition, especially if they're like in like a different area, something like that. A guy was in Greensboro, which is quite some distance from me. Was running into those problems. He's like, I don't have this finances set up. I don't have this and that set up, and I'm running into a lot of problems. And I had to kind of vouch for him. And kind of say, okay, well, I know this guy. I can vouch for him. Can we please get something set up to help him out? And then they were able to move forward with that and get his account set up and get him to start get books shipped to him. I think that we kind of need to kind of look out for each other a little bit and try to help each other out. But
agreed.
And that's going to take some time, and it's going to take a little bit of faith. But I think in the long run, though, it'll make the retail industry, a lot healthier.
That's the way I've operated for 30 years. Larry Doherty is the comic shop owner's friend. So
it is a good thing to do for shops to help out your overall network. I mean, these are people who, if they're healthy and stable, can provide books to you when you need them in the future to help your customers out. It's good to establish that network. And there were some good creators who are helping people out too. I don't remember King, but I remember that Murphy, in the interview with him, Murphy was calling up shops in his area and helping them get signed up. That's cool. Do that.
So I do want to say, if you're brand new to Thinking Critical and you haven't subscribed to the channel, please definitely consider subscribing. You'll get great comic book content with all these fine gentlemen right here. And if you're enjoying this conversation, and it is a dandy, definitely give us a thumbs up, like the video, and tell your friends about it. But we do have a $5 super chat from Everett Todd, and I want to say thank you very much to Everett Todd for supporting the channel. Very generous of you. Comics has needed better logistics and technology across the board for 15 plus years now. Now, Perch, I know you know a thing or two about technology and logistics. I believe it's what you do in your real life. Would you say that's about accurate?
Yeah, absolutely. It is definitely needed. And for a while, I would say in the 90s, I mean, a lot of this stuff was out of reach in some cases where it was very expensive to pick up and a lot. But with kind of the bubble and prices falling and things through 2000, especially now with the advent of a lot of mobile and tablet technologies and other things, there's no doubt that there are easier, cheaper options for logistics and technology. And certainly technology. Logistics is always, a struggle, but you see a blueprint from Amazon and others around how to manage some of this stuff. And it's not necessarily the most proprietary information. You can copy that, but definitely technology. There's been this avoidance of adopting what I would call very, very basic technology solutions in comics. And you see people complain for point of sale system changes or reorders. I mean, there's just for no good reason. Again, it's like we were talking about before. People just complain, and you can't manage a business in 2020 if you haven't embraced at least some level of technology. It's ridiculous. All your customers are, and the customers you really want are the ones coming in. So if you're one of these sites, like I did a comment on a couple of months ago, if you're like Mile High and you have a website that looks like a 1990 GeoCity special, that's not going to fly anymore. You're going to go out of business.
Mm-hmm.
So I do want to say thank you very much to Everett Todd for supporting the channel. I couldn't do it without you guys, and if you want to support the channel today, I would definitely appreciate it. It's certainly not a requirement. I do have a lot of content here to talk about. So Yule, you recently reopened your shop. You've been working with the new distributors. You work with the old distributors. I know you were having an absolute nightmare with Diamond. Has that continued, or have things gotten better?
We got our comics at the end of work day on Wednesday from Diamond.
That sucks.
So that's all Marvel, Oni, Top Shelf, any other company out there. I also heard, and it is my own fault, this happens. I have accounts with different publishers, like Macmillan and First Second and Scholastic and things like that. So it's not like I have to depend on Diamond to get books in, but as I was finalizing my order for a new Adrian Tomine book that's coming out, I realized later, oh, I could have just got it from the book company instead, obviously, a month earlier. So now my competitor has it. I'm like, oh man, what did I do? That's not really on Diamond as much, but yeah, it's that kind of thing. And then you don't you can't have a conversation after the fact. So we didn't have any shipping information on when we were going to be getting our books this week. We call, we leave messages, we write emails, and then finally we call again, and they're like, oh yeah, it says it's already being delivered. And we're like, what? Where's this tracking number? And, we're not there to get it.
Who's it being delivered to?
So we got it end of day Wednesday. But we got it this week, so woo! Sometimes it's been like the next week out, or maybe the week after that. And when it was the last run of DC comic books, good luck getting all of them. And like Larry was saying, they're printing order now, and getting a reorder on that is nigh impossible on most books. I mean, when Marvel...
You have to be fast.
When Marvel is like the company that still has back issue or the reorders to go, that's saying it never used to be that way. It was always DC. I knew 4 months down the line I could still go and get that, issue number 1, 2, 3, 4, 20, 25. It doesn't matter what the number is. And I remember back in especially in the Jeff Loeb Superman Batman days, I was waiting for the trades to come out a year out, and I was rebuying back ordering comic books all the way up until the trade came out, and it was just it was a great time to sell back issues in a comic book store because it was always available, and that's it's a bummer that it can't be that way. And now that DC is the worst at it, it's mind blowing. It's that's not how it ever used to be. Yeah.
That back issue right now, there's never in my 30 years having a store, there's never been a better time to sell back issues than right now. The back issue market is healthier, stronger than it's ever been at any time in the medium's history. So
yeah, we did a stream on this a while back. One thing that I will say, and I'm warning people about this, I'm warning people vehemently about this, is the vintage market right now, the 60s and 70s, silver and bronze age, people need to calm down because inflation, with all the Trump bucks and everything like that, we got trillions of dollars more in the market. People need to calm down because there's going to be a correction, and you're talking about a 20,
disagree
30, 40%
entirely.
correction. And you can do that. I've got the numbers. But you're
missing an important element.
No, I'm not. You're talking about $500,000 books that are going for $700 to $1,400 right now, and they are inflated. Wait a while. Wait for things to cool off, and the prices will come down. But right now, just relax. Don't be looking to those big mega keys. Just kind of relax a little bit. And go into it with a better, fresher perspective, probably around November, January. That's what I'm thinking.
Well, what I'm thinking is because of the MCU, there has been a huge influx of foreign buyers for quality key material. And if you've got your eye on a certain key book, I would buy it now at the inflated prices because you're never ever ever going to get a shot at it again.
I don't buy that. That's never been that way. It's never happened like that before.
It's never happened that way before, but there's never been people in different countries who've watched MCU movies and decided they wanted to start collecting Marvel comics. That's where this is coming from. A lot of the books are being taken out of the market, shipping them to foreign countries. There's new Marvel fans have been created, and they're buying the old stuff. That's my opinion, and we'll see how it.
2016, 2017 saw the same thing. 2016,
Don't buy them
2017
unless you're
sell the
buying
same
from me.
thing.
That's the important thing.
There you go. There you go. For you. But a few years ago, the same thing happened. We saw 30, 40, 50% pop on really big keys. And what did the market do? It dropped 30, 40% in 6 months as everybody kind of stepped back and went, oh, those prices are really high. So just relax.
No, are you saying?
No, guys.
Are you saying auction?
You guys have to calm down. That is not what this stream was about. But I do want to say thank you very much to Club Cosplay, the Nerds Nightclub, for the $5 super chat. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. A national chain is needed to set the standard. I would invest. Pele, do you agree that a national chain of comic book retailers is needed? Does there need to be a Taco Bell of comic book retail?
Well, don't say it like that.
But there could be an association where it's kind of like, people talk and stuff like that. Owners can better communicate with each other. But we already have things like that. We've already got, well, yeah, and we've got CGC, which, the CGC boards are just packed full of comic shop owners. And I talk with probably 90% of owners out there that communicate via the CGC forums. So, it's not like there's not already
a friendly forum.
Alliance. But there's a loose alliance. But if you want to formalize something, I don't know. It's kind of like
herding cats.
Yeah, it really is.
I know how that feels.
It would be helpful to.
Well, in my opinion, comic shops function best as a boutique when they're independently owned small businesses where you can go in and you can get the personal touch. The person can guide you through the very confusing hobby, kind of curate their shelves to what their customers need, and kind of guide you into the world of reading comic books. As a chain like Barnes and Noble, the reason that they fail at carrying the graphic novels is, there's nobody in that aisle to assist anybody. And if it's not the top 10 books, the stuff just rots on the shelves, gets returned in pallets, and I buy them.
Yeah. I think an association, I don't know if that's the right word, but I think two things. There should be some level of support mechanism for buying power and for modernization and this kind of thing. But it has to, I think that'd be very helpful. I think it's needed. And not a formal chain, but something like that. But at the same time, I also think it needs to be created and run by new people, not the people who have run these things in the past. You specifically want somebody to come in and say, hey, we're going to band some people together, and our purpose here is to connect shops and to help them modernize and bring things up a little bit. That's our purpose. So we're going to have people who are really good at that job and good at outreach, and we're going to form this kind of alliance and make it, take it away from Facebook groups and very shaky nonsense. And put some formality behind it, but it needs to be some new people. The people who step up to try and do this stuff now are people who have been in the business for 20, 25 years. They're not the best authority on this kind of stuff. You need, and it's not authority is the wrong word. It's help. We need better networks, better collections of people. But there will be resistance. I mean, there's a lot of shops out there run by people who have very, very strong opinions. They don't always collide with reality, or they like Larry said, they've been running it like boutiques, and in some ways that's nice, and in other ways that entrenches people into things that really badly, are bad. But
there are very, very different types of stores too. I mean, you've got just as many different types of comic stores as there are practically owners out there.
That's the strength of the direct market. It's a network of 2,000 independent stores. Everything's different.
It is some shops that just will only deal with older books, some that deal with more modern books, some that and it's a plethora. It's a very rich buffet of different types of shops.
I like rich buffet. I like that.
Yep.
But hey, Kenneth is out there, I think.
All right, so I do want to say thank you very, very much to Club Cosplay, the Nerds Nightclub, for the $5 super chat. It's very generous of you. There is another one in here that I missed. I apologize. We have another super chat from Kenneth Dowling, and he says, I want to say I agree with Larry about back issues. I told Doc in the chat, I just bought X-Men 183 and 193 by Claremont. Compared to comics today in the pandemic, The classics are so much better. And I definitely agree. And you and I had a conversation about this just the other day. Larry, turns out you were right.
Fantastic.
Yeah. 183, one of my favorite X-Men's of all time, by the way.
Which one is that?
Awesome. That's the one where Juggernaut fights Colossus in the bar.
That's a great one. John Romita. Yeah.
Is it Colossus or Colossus?
I always say Colossus.
Colossus.
I'm kidding.
Come on, Larry.
We had a customer who calls it
Asian
Colossus. It's a
superhero in
joke.
the world.
Oh my God, we should do a show someday where we just talk about all either the mispronunciations of names and stuff like that.
Canard.
Like by me, I mean.
I do that every day. That's kind of my signature.
What's nigh invulnerable though? I never fucking got that.
Almost invulnerable.
Almost
I do want to
Nigh
say
invulnerable.
Yeah.
Perch. Like I said, you and I were talking about this, and I read so many classics while the pandemic was going on after I caught up on all my new comics that now that I've jumped back into new comics, it's kind of hurt me where I'm like, I feel like some of the stuff nowadays is lacking because I read too many classic runs concurrently.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's a problem when you can kind of pick and choose the very best comics over the last 40 to 50 years, and now suddenly you come back into today. I mean, even if comics today were firing on all cylinders, you can't stack things up that way. I mean, you have story arcs where 100 issues in the making paying off. I mean, that's going to be hard to compete with. I was recommending Punisher Return to Big Nothing a couple weeks ago, and somebody shot me an email, had got their hands on it, like that comic was amazing. I had no idea the Punisher was like that, and now the Punisher sucks. Sorry.
The last Punisher series by Garth Ennis was fantastic.
Punisher Soviet was
Punisher
amazing.
Soviet.
Yeah,
That was
it was
great.
good. No,
You just have to weed through. You have to weed through the stacks. The medium is reaching heights that it's never reached before. I mean, I'd submit the Daredevil this week is as good as any back issues you're going to dig out. I mean, there's great. There's more shit on the shelves at any time in the industry's history, but there's better books right now than there's ever been. And every week there's gems.
There is good. So if we get too negative about it, I do think there are better books out there than sometimes the perception is. I don't think we're the best era that comics has ever been, but I do think they're better than a lot of people perceive. And it's easy to think that when you have have 100 comics on the shelf every week, and 80 of those feel like they're being done kind of on the cheap. So that's going to bring the whole thing down. But there are good comics out there to buy. They're not all gone. There's always something. But I do say if you haven't read Punisher Return to Big Nothing, I always put that up. That's just a good Punisher story, and it really does make a lot of what's happened over the last 20 years look silly.
Absolutely. So I do want to say thank you very much to Kenneth Dowling for the $10 super chat. But I want to kind of get back to some of the viewer comments. And this one I saw a lot. And it's this is what Nuclear Convoy said. He said, in Canada, the UCCS service has been horrible for my LCS. They're shipping regular USPS, and it's getting held up at the border, and it's very expensive. I'm hearing that across the board. Anyone that is a customer in Canada, I guess the new distributors aren't really working out across the border for our denim-clad neighbors to the north.
I have a customer that is in Toronto right now, and he's going to be there for a couple months. So I shipped him his comic books. He had about $75 worth of comics, and it cost about $50 to ship. So I feel for Canada. Whew. It might be bad for them right now. Go Lunar. I've been enjoying them.
I ship 100 packages a day, and I shudder every time a foreign order comes in. Foreign postage is so expensive. It's so unreliable. You can't print some of it out on many of the online postage apps. You have to bring them directly to the post office. I mean, it sucks. I feel bad for the people in Canada, but how's UCS to get it to you? I mean, get a U.S. forwarding service. I don't know. Foreign postage.
And then
sucks.
That's just Canada. I mean, we're not even separated by an ocean.
I'm in the Philippines, man.
Yeah.
It's rough.
I mean, have you ever tried to get anything to Puerto Rico? That's like a U.S. Adjacent, right? It's hard. Puerto Rico's the hardest.
Yep, you can't even print out Puerto Rico postage on Amazon. If you sell they'll sell an item for you to Puerto Rico, but then you can't purchase the postage through their app. They don't even want anything to do with it. It's so sketchy down there.
I don't want to get all Lin-Manuel Garcia on this show, but we got to do something about that place.
Oh, yeah.
If we're going to be connected, come on.
He's going heel. He's going heel, folks.
No, I'm just saying, like, I just want to ship stuff to our friends.
Well, I do want to say thank you very much to, I believe it's Pawan Sidhu. I'm sorry if I butchered your name, for the $6.99. I think it's Canadian dollar super chat. I might have gotten that one wrong. I am only, a comic book YouTuber. I'm not a genius here. Hey guys, I love the dialogue that you have every week. Do you think a Marvel DC super crossover would be good for the industry? Absolutely. And do you have any ideas on stories? I think yes, a big crossover, if it was well planned out, and they kind of had a hiatus on the events on both sides, and it was the focal point of the industry, would absolutely sell like hotcakes, and it would create a lot of interest. I think people would come back. Perch, you're writing a comic book right now. I know you're writing a comic book. Do you guys have any ideas on what that big crossover would be? Do we need to see a new Avengers versus the Teen Titans? Would that be the big money story?
Yeah, I think actually the biggest thing that would make it successful is the other stuff you said. Lay off the events for a couple months beforehand at least. If you're Marvel, like, can you go at least 2 weeks? Give us 2 weeks beforehand, and build it up a little bit. I think put some top talent on it. In many cases, the story. I know we can get to that in a second, but the story would be almost secondary if you just put top creators on it, cleared out the events, don't do anything silly, don't do 5 prelude issues, at $9.99. Just roll it out like a sane company. But if I was, sitting in the driver's seat and needed to do this, I'd take a page from Secret Wars, and I'd try the original Secret Wars, and try and do something similar to that. Don't mess around with like current Earth. Get them off onto a battle world or something. It sounds cliche, but that way you don't have to worry about all the supporting characters and all the other kind of pieces of the mythology. You can get it off into kind of a clean zone and explore kind of a limited set of the heroes. Don't try and do everything. That's a mistake these guys often make, is like, hey, let's see what happens when Jimmy Olsen meets J. Jonah Jameson. It's like, no, don't do that. Don't waste time for that. Just stick with the big characters. I don't know. What do you say, Yul?
I think it would be very popular for sure. I don't think we could see these two companies actually get their heads together to do it, though. And then, of course, who's going to beat up Superman? I don't want some other character showing up my character, and I'm not kidding.
Thanos.
Exactly. What about, then you go, well, what about Darkseid, and Galactus? And I can't see Disney being happy if they job their characters out to DC characters, right? Yeah. I mean, this is kind of wrestling, but I think this is a legitimate concern if they do something like that, especially now, because everything is so temperamental.
I'll tell you one thing. I would love to read a Perry White and J. Jonah Jameson crossover.
There you go.
I would pay money for that shit.
It would be beautiful.
I would pay good money for that.
Teach Momoko on art.
Well, fellas, I think you're getting the crossover. In Thor 1 and 2, you saw Donny Cates, you saw the Black Winter arrived on on DC and engulfed them. And now Donny Cates has crossover coming out from Image in the fall. I think it's going to be the tongue-in-cheek crossover that DC and Time Warner can't agree together to do. So you're going to get as close to Superman as you can get, and as close to Spider-Man as you can get from Image without actually infringing on the copyrights. But I think that whole deal is the crossover, as close as it's going to get. Crossover is the crossover.
Yeah.
All right, guys, I'm going to give my pitch, and then we're going to go back to what we were talking about. But this is what I would do. There would be a pyramid up in the North Pole, and these people would go in there, and then they would realize there were superheroes from Marvel, there were superheroes from DC, and every 5 minutes the pyramid would reconstruct itself, and they would have to survive as they fought each other. It would be about the humans.
Okay, I'll tell you how I'd do it. Null is coming to Earth, and there's a little meteor in space. It's a funny joke. He pokes it over.
I already said that was the last word, Larry. Come on, we're going back to the other topic. I'm sorry. Thank you very much for supporting the channel. Now, did we foresee these things happening with Canada? It sounds like it's a very big issue. Will UCS or Lunar be able to kind of navigate these waters? Because it sounds like the customers up there are not getting their comic books.
Yeah, that's going to be Canada. They just need to start. You know, need to start distribution warehouse in Canada. They need to, Montreal, Toronto, somewhere, they need to get in there and embed because, it's I can understand the freight issues. I mean,
like a Diamond Europe situation in Toronto.
Exactly.
A mid-sized box is $40 to cross the border. How can this American company get the books up there cheaper? I mean, I understand that the Canadian stores are frustrated, but I mean,
Perch, maybe that should be your next business, like contraband comics to Canada or something like that.
Yeah,
hot air balloons into Canada, you drop them on the store.
If I had balloons to drop something, I'd be sitting in south of Portland right now, I think.
Maybe.
There you
go. It's crazy. So I got a comic book for my cousin in Dallas. I ordered the comic book from mycomicshop.com. It's in Dallas, correct?
Mm-hmm.
I ordered it over
Texas.
a week ago. He hasn't received it because the postal service sucks.
Well, they say on their website that they're experiencing delays with everything. So, either that or it's a convenient excuse because they don't have as many people working right now, maybe.
All I know is I looked at the tracking and it was shipped out the day that I bought it. And it's still not there.
Huh.
I've seen like a...
Same
where
thing.
Usually, well, I mean, it's just the way, it seems crazy that happens, but it does. I've seen that. We expect to hear 7 days, and it's like, it's in the same state. Come on.
I've had trouble shipping to California.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's crazy. So it might not actually be all UCS's fault. But I did say I'm going to have a conversation with someone who's had a nightmare with UCS. I do want to say thanks to the doctor. He's normally with us, but he's letting the retailers have the panel today for the $4.99. Regina kills the Marvel and DC universes, and that sounds like another $1 million idea. I think my Alien versus Predator remix.
I think it would be good.
That'd be great.
Still work it over, but
I think Regina Kills the Universe is kind of a documentary at this point, almost.
What about DC and Marvel entering the Scott Pilgrim universe?
Yeah, it's $1 million.
They could all be losers, and just kind of pathetic.
Yeah. Well, again, I think that's kind of a documentary what we got now.
Well, it is. That might be what's actually wrong with the industry. Obviously, you and I talk about that as well.
We're going flat this morning. That's what's happening. Yeah.
All right. So here's another comment, and this is from Cal Kella, and he said, "Did anyone else notice the downgrade in Marvel covers? The Wolverine #3 cover is thinner than interior paper. The Power Rangers Ranger Slayer cover was about 4 times as thick as Marvel." Obviously, that's from Boom.
It's
Larry.
a process known as it's a print technique called self-covering covers. They print the cover stock on the interior stock. They negate the cost of buying cover stock. It's a cheap ass, miserable thing to do from the #1 publisher in the business. You get Boom's production quality is superb. IDW has been having their troubles this year, but their books have always been industry standard. Their cover stock, their interior stock, they're just beautiful items. I buy direct from Scout Comics. They don't even register in terms of a publisher. The most beautifully printed items, graphic excellence arrive at my store from Scout Comics, and Marvel has to use self-covering techniques on books that have 50,000 print runs. It's disgusting.
Yeah, Marvel always has done stuff like that. I mean, I remember I was in early 2000. I was bagging comics, and I noticed that Marvel was sitting about like that much shorter than any of the times before, or any of the other comics that were coming out. And I'm like, what is this? You know, why is there so much room? And you got these little dinky comics is basically what's going on. Yeah, Marvel's cheap. They always have been. It doesn't matter who owns them.
If you look at the miswrap percentage, it is insane during the 70s and 80s. I mean,
yeah.
You could have like half an inch of, spine way over here on the right, and you got this big huge white border, and that looks good, ship it out. Who's in charge of quality control then? And it's not gotten any better. So
Marvel does this weird thing where, and I think for you guys who have a lot of back issues, check this out. It's like almost like they settle over time. They get thinner. Like if you have them stacked in a box, like Marvel will start to just compress. And I don't
all
know.
of them do.
Yeah, no, they all do, but Marvel does at a faster rate. You can stack them up side by side, and Marvel's just settles thinner over time. You'll see this. It's weird, and I always wonder what's going on in there.
Well, if you open up the book, you'll notice that, especially the newsprint comics, you open up the books that have been stacked like that. We've had like 100 books stacked on top of it, pushing it down. You open it up and you start feeling of the newsprint itself, and it's almost like onion paper now.
Yeah, exactly.
It's become so thin that it's like, oh my gosh, you're like afraid you're going to rip it if you just barely touch it. So it's like,
And a lot of shops where I've bought stock from, they resist technique. I don't know what people, but they pack the boxes as full as possible, and it's like somebody would go around a year later and just cram a few more things in the box. It's like, hey, there's an extra inch of room now, and put some more comics in there.
Don't do it.
I don't know why that's going on, but it's happened many times. You get this effect at part where the staple just starts, that side just starts to get really weird too, and it's you see this happen. They all do compress, absolutely, but Marvel has a much faster acceleration with that.
Yeah.
It's also due to the weight of the paper. Modern comics paper is a lot heavier. When you keep them in the factory sealed cases, they compress and the staples do come through. I mean, I've found myself in the pandemic, putting together 10 packs and storing them in regular boxes to avoid the staple push, because I just end up having to press that out.
So, all right, so these companies that aren't Marvel are making beautiful books. Oni makes really good comics, as far as the way they look on the shelf and everything. A lot of times I've noticed that the interior work is not so up to quality standard. Maybe the paper is. But I wouldn't say that this is a person that's going to be on like a mainstream comic anytime soon, or it's any different than something else, maybe if they didn't put so much money into the quality of the physical, the physicalness, the tactile sensation of the book, and actually paid, because, a lot of these companies are getting slammed for not paying their creators hardly anything.
Well, I don't think Marvel could get any cheaper as far as the exterior of the books, because, it's like I picked up a comic the other day and just barely had any moisture on my hands, and suddenly I had this inky mess.
Don't touch Marvel comics with your hands.
It's like, it's like your boy Zach, he's like through reading a comic that he's doing a review on, and all of a sudden his hand's covered in ink. That's real. That actually does happen.
You're better off folding the cover.
Some Marvels, when they use the cover stock, I mean, Empyre this week is just beautiful, and then the books they decide to not use the cover stock suck. It's hit or miss, and I don't know what the deciding factor is for choosing it. Sometimes it's books that have pretty significant print runs that they use the self-covering technique for. I don't get it.
Yeah.
I mean, in the end, it's I don't think. It's not like they're spending money that could go to the creators. They could cut back on some of this with the covers and everything, but it's Marvel's game right now. If you're looking at where the dollars are going to the cover. I mean, in many cases, the cover
art.
Yeah, the cover artist. Sorry. And in some cases, that cover artist is getting paid the same or close to the same as the interior artist, or really close to it, and that's. That's the problem. And when I went through the solicitation for October, like there were, I want to say less than 5 comics where the cover artist and the interior artist were the same over their entire line, which is just insane if you think about it.
Yeah, I was in a conversation on Twitter with Victor Bogdanovich, and he was talking about that. And, you know, I kind of was like, at first I was a little salty. I'm like, well, are you going to do the same if you get the cover, you know? Because he was like, yeah, cover should be the same. But it always seemed like it was an earned thing back in the day, you know? If you can knock Neil Adams off the covers, then do it. But Kurt Swan ain't doing that, you know? And, you know, those are the comics that everybody remembers, at least the covers, the imagery. Same thing with, I mean, you're going to say no, Charles Vest, don't do those Web of Spider-Man covers, even though you're not doing the interiors. I say, wow, it's amazing that there was a moment when Charles Vest did a Spider-Man anything, you know?
I was always disappointed when as a fan, when I'd pick up a book with a killer cover and then inside it was drawn by Joe Q. Fucknuggets. I mean, I think the carpet should match the drape on the A cover, and then if you want to do something for a variant, go for it. But
well, and I'm talking a little bit more specifically before they did so many variants, you know.
Okay,
I mean, Jim Lee doing 5 X-Men covers seemed like, you know, a lot, but at least it was him doing all the covers, you know.
Exactly.
Jim Lee was associated with X-Men too. I mean, there was a logic to it. Today, it's like, I mean, Alex Ross is just making a bank off Marvel right now. He's doing like, it feels like half the covers. They're beautiful. Don't get me wrong, but I mean, if you're picking up Captain America and you've got an Alex Ross cover and you open this up and it's a guy making $75 a page with kind of insane perspective, that's a letdown. I mean, no matter how you run it, that's a big letdown.
I remember. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I have Immortal Hulk in my personal collection just because of the Alex Ross covers. I mean, I didn't like the story, but those covers are work of his career.
Yeah, he's doing good work.
What were you
going to say? He did good work before. I can't remember. It doesn't matter. I didn't realize you. No, actually, I'm just trying to help fill air because we were filling.
It also reminds me of
and
those
then Wes
amazing,
showed up.
I can fill air.
Those amazing Adam Hughes covers for Wonder Woman and Catwoman that were just stunning stuff, and then you open it up, it's like, oh.
But
those covers.
Got to Adam Hughes. He doesn't draw covers like that anymore. There's no more justice for Adam Hughes.
But those covers, I mean, people buy those comics back issue stuff. I mean, those actually go up in price now, and that's like, you know, yeah, I agree. It's not so wonderful when someone isn't as good as Adam Hughes doing Wonder Woman, but now we're seeing that they're just doing really well, and you know, there's another avenue for a reason for people to buy them. Hey, Mike.
Hey, how y'all doing today?
Hey, Mike.
Good, buddy.
How y'all doing?
So I do want to apologize. When I sent Mike the information that we were doing this show on at 10 a.m. on Saturday, I didn't put Eastern Standard Time, so he thought I was talking about Central Time. That is my fault, people. And I'm sorry, Michael. But we do have Michael Tierney, comic book writer and comic book shop owner on the channel. I'm sorry I gave you bad information.
No problem. Glad to be here.
So we were just talking about some of the Marvel covers. Have you noticed that the Marvel covers are basically recycled toilet paper now because they're so thin?
Pretty much. Well, what they're doing is in printing what they call self-cover, where it's the same cover on the outside as what the paper is on the inside. So it's cheaper to print them that way.
Do you do that with your books?
No.
What are your books, Michael?
I'm sorry?
What books do you print? What do you do?
Well, I've had a series of comics that I made back in the 80s and again in early 2001, 2002 called Wild Stars. And it's 2 words.
Oh, wow.
And then I've also done a bunch of novels on them. Matter of fact, I just turned in a new novel a couple of weeks ago. Got a great response from the publisher. It's kind of nice to be at the point as a writer where you turn something in and they send you a check without even reading it.
Wow.
And that they're always
I'm going to check those out.
Yeah, it's right now it's available a couple different ways. They've always stayed in print as in graphic novel form, and the publisher Crusoe was doing it right now. They've got them in, and I originally did them in comic book size, and when I made my graphic novels myself to keep control over it, made them even smaller than the comics to make them like books. Well, when the Crusoe started doing the publishing for me, he went the other way. He made them large, 11.5 by 8.5 by 11 magazines, and which really makes the artwork pop. I mean,
where are they available?
Now, Yeah, they're available. They're available on Amazon or directly through Kursova Publishing. But another thing that he did too is he took it all 4 volumes and put them into one giant 726-page omnibus. I mean, it's a monster.
That's what I want.
You can kind of see it right here on my bookshelf there, and it's no, it's not all comics though. I mean, it's got 9 comics. One of them is like it's actually a 64-page giant issue, and almost like a triple size. But it also has the comics from the 80s in there too, and some unpublished comics. But it also has like 3 novels with it too. So right now I'm just kind of novelizing everything, and still keeping it well illustrated. Hiring artists like Mark Wheatley to do covers and some interior illustrations, and had Tim Lim do some artwork for me. And over the years, I've had Frank Bruner doing covers for me. So it's got a lot of great artwork in there.
Very nice.
Someone's selling on eBay.
Yep.
So, Michael, we've been talking about the new distributors. You're in Little Rock, so I imagine you're working with Lunar, correct?
No, I'm UCS.
You are UCS. Have you had issues with UCS? Because we are seeing there's maybe some more heartache with UCS's service compared to Lunar. What has your experience been with UCS compared to Diamond?
Excellent. I mean, it's been fantastic. I had my first shortage of a title last week, and that's the first problem I've had. I've had no damages. They arrive early. They're the easiest shipments to unpack that I've ever seen. Diamond, they like to give you a jigsaw puzzle. They have 4 books, well, they're going to put them in 4 boxes. I mean, it's crazy. Yep. And then they shuffle them, they mix them all around. It's like, and with the UCS, you just get them, you unpack them, all the titles together, all the covers are there with the one title. You just can unpack it in minutes, whereas an hour or 2 sometimes with a Diamond, just to sort of find it and try to put the jigsaw puzzle back together. Diamond it's like, have you done your returns yet from the DC books that were offered for returns?
I have.
Has anybody here done? Yeah.
I did,
well,
yeah. I shipped out.
I shipped out a ton. From Diamond, it's all nice in order when you pull on the website. But then when you actually go to do the return form,
they try to confuse you.
Jumbled like the way they pack stuff. It takes forever. Just okay, where's this one now? You have it all in order. It could be just a couple-minute job. Nope, they make it into about an hour job. I mean, it's just like everything Diamond does right now is to make it difficult on retailers. It's a crazy.
Michael, can you talk about your experience in the past with the Plattsburgh warehouse from Diamond?
Plattsburgh is fantastic. I mean, if I could have continued to do business with Plattsburgh, I probably still would have my stores open. I probably just closed them down because I just can't deal with all the branch anymore. I mean, I'm still dealing with them, but as a mail order now, I just converted over because I couldn't keep my storefronts open because you just can't operate with 15 to 25% shortages every single week. It's crippling. And, when I was with Plattsburgh, my sales climbed steadily because, I was able to get really good service. With Olive Branch, my sales steadily declined. I kept telling them that, at Baltimore, I said, guys, you're going to drive me out of business. You just can't do business this way. I was sending them pictures, how I'd get one book to a box repeatedly. I've got a whole file on my computer of the sins of Diamond shipping about, just how I eat you alive with, where the shipping runs more than what the stuff is that they're shipping. I mean, it's like it's almost designed to drive all the retailers out of business. I don't know if they're just massively incompetent or what, but it's just... I just ever since they have relocated that branch from see what happened when Jeffy bought Capital City, he took the Sparta, Illinois warehouse that Capital City had, which was a central hub made that.
Michael, can you turn your mic up? It's kind of hard to hear you.
I don't know. I don't even know if I got a volume control on here or not. If I pull a little closer, is that better?
A little bit.
Is that a little better? Okay. Yeah, I don't even know if I got a volume control on here or not.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I got to get glasses for the fine print here.
Well, Michael works on his volume. I will say thank you very much to Kenneth Dowling for the $10 super chat. And he says, Wes, I watched your spoiler review of Batman 95, and I agree with you 100%. Tynion is stealing beats from Nolan's Batman films. Even the Joker's motivation from 93 mirrors Heath Ledger's Joker. I've definitely noticed that. Perch, have you noticed that there's some similarities between what Tynion's doing in Christopher Nolan's Batman trilogy?
Yeah, I mean, particularly in the pacing and kind of the cliffhanger. I mean, just it definitely feels that way. It has the same, and it's smart. That was a popular mainstream set of films, and so having that same kind of tension and dynamic. I mean, forget about the story beats. Yes, definitely there are story beats that feel copied from it, but the pacing really feels copied of how kind of the tension is being built and how the reveals are coming out. It definitely reminded me of the same film, and I completely agree. And it's smart. It's very smart to do it that way, and it's a great palate cleanser after the previous, dozens and dozens of issues of kind of, mopey sadness. This is, dramatic tension and things moving around. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, I feel like Tom King was trying to like stealing beats from Requiem for a Dream or something.
Yeah, it had that. Well, yeah, I mean, even that movie had more action. I mean, I think, yeah, it was more. Yeah, it was Slackers. I mean, maybe I don't know, just kind of some Julia Robert Hugh Grant movie, maybe something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a bit depressing. So I do want to say thank you very much to Kenneth Dowling for the super chat, and definitely thank you for watching my review of Batman 95. I definitely enjoy doing those Batman reviews. We'll be covering all of Joker War here on the channel. And Michael, were you able to have some success with the mic?
Look, can you hear me now?
I can hear you better. Absolutely.
Okay, good deal.
All right, so did you want to continue on with what you were saying about Olive Branch? Who's typing?
Yeah.
What in the world? Oh,
Not me.
Not me. Hands up.
Nope.
It's Larry.
That's Larry.
I was taking a comic out of a bag.
Oh,
Yeah.
Right next to the microphone.
Olive Branch,
Sorry.
what happened with
It
Diamond?
sounded like the comic was coming out of it.
And they took the Sparta branch and they moved it out to Olive Branch. I don't think they've ever been able to get good help. Matter of fact, did anybody get that message Diamond sent out
Prisoners.
a couple weeks ago about how they're going to have to try to incorporate? They've got this voice software that tells them what to pull, and they're going to have to try to get a Spanish version of it because they can't get enough English-speaking workers to pull their orders for them. And I used to date a girl who translated Spanish for the state of Arkansas, and she told me, said Spanish is not an easy language to translate. So that does not bode well. I mean, the problems we're already having, anywhere from 10 to 25% on every week basis, shortages and mistakes. What's it going to be like when they don't understand what the computer's telling them?
Yeah,
That's great. So, kind of getting back to some of the viewer comments that I got on the video, that's been doing great, and thank you for everyone that actually watched it. It's definitely one of the more successful videos Perch and I have ever done on the channel, and this is what. John L. said. He is a comic shop owner. My Diamond rep answers about 33% of my emails. I have resent the same emails 3 to 4 times with no response on product shortages and damages. I need more options for non-DC books. This sucks. And that seems to be a general feeling about the service that people are getting with Diamond. I think they even sent out a mass email that told people, stop contacting your reps, just contact us generic email.
Yeah, I don't even try to call.
Yes, they did. I got that
by email.
Oh yeah,
Sorry.
yeah. I got in I got a text message actually from my rep asking me to please stop emailing, and that the email system was overloaded right now, and that if I needed to reach him, he told me to use his text. Told me to use his phone number and just text messages directly to him.
Wow.
I was like, wow.
Yeah, I've tried calling a few times, and you go through that long wait on the queue to go connect a person, and you finally get a hold of somebody, and this is supposed to customer service you're calling, and then it's, I got to transfer you to somebody else, and then they transfer you to a number that's disconnected.
Don't try to call them.
Just give up calling.
Yeah, it's
They'll transfer you to where you can't connect to anybody.
I mean, it's not acceptable when you have a pause. You shorted people some money. You're struggling to get back up on your feet, and now you're saying, "Hey, we have a commitment to the industry. Wednesday, we are here." You can't then turn around and be air silent on these problems, which are problems. These people aren't calling to wish them well or tell Steve Jeppy happy birthday. They've got problems trying to sell and survive. So you run this back to comeback, and then you go silent. That's insanity. So, not acceptable at all. That mail of like, please don't write. I mean, come on. That's how to ruin your business.
I think they have a commitment to the industry. I think that they are. Yeah. I think they genuinely think they're coming back. They're fucking it all up, and it's failing. Yeah. I don't think they want to go out of business, but I think they're going out of business.
This is what one of the other owners I know was telling me about is this, hey, back the comeback. Don't call us, we'll call you. It's just,
So
When
purchase.
I email a rep, it bounces. Half of these people aren't even working for the company anymore. You know, they've hired a bunch of they've farmed out customer service reps who are professional customer service people who know nothing about Diamond or comic books. I mean, it's terrible.
So, Perch, you've worked in the technology industry. How does their email get overwhelmed? Does that just mean that they don't have people to answer the emails, or are their servers degraded?
No. They just don't have people to answer them. Like the inbox is filling up. You can have, look, I mean, there's a lot of customer service departments, and unless they're running like Notes 96, I mean, there's just no chance of that. So it is. This is just purely. They're not answering their emails. Maybe there's nobody to answer them. Maybe they just don't want to invest the time. Who knows? But this is not a capacity problem. Email systems and servers are designed to handle thousands of emails. They're not getting that kind of response. So they're just people not answering email. They can't blame the technology on this. But I remember,
in the military, my email had like 6 years worth of stuff I never deleted, and we're talking about enormous files of like when I was doing intelligence work. We're talking enormous files, and there was never an issue.
I can guarantee you that, I mean, you know, anybody who runs a channel, if you have an active channel and you have people commenting, and you've left on the, send me an email when somebody drops a comment in my video, YouTube is going to spam you with 1,000 emails a day if you put that stuff on. I'm willing to bet that Wes or I've turned those filters off. But if we had those things on, we'd have more emails than Diamond's getting right now in terms of sheer volume. This is just people not answering it. But I saw that Rags did a super chat, which is, or Brian, sorry, and I couldn't figure it out because there's nothing there. But
I think he just likes us.
I think it's a very subtle marketing campaign to the fact that she can't find her pants. There's no text there. That's what was going on. It's missing pants.
Oh, mind blown, man! I just thought he liked me and wanted to give me $5.
I'm not going to comment about her.
There might be pants.
I got yelled at last time.
I think that's what's going on. I don't know. Either that or
opening a bad door, Perch.
Yeah, no pun intended.
Step on in.
So, Michael, with all the stuff we're saying, it's obviously that they're understaffed. It sounds like they've been hiring new people that aren't really that they're absolutely new to the business. They must have let some seasoned people go. We know they took an enormous PPP loan. They've not been paying out. They're not paying the publishers what they were supposed to pay them. They changed the payout dates. It all seems very, very bleak for me. Larry kind of addressed it earlier. Do you think that, like, is Diamond here for the long haul, or do you think they're in jeopardy?
Oh, well, they're definitely in jeopardy. I mean, I think every business in America, with this pandemic, is in some form of jeopardy or another. We're all having to navigate waters that we've never been in before. With them as a business partner, that had a lot to do with my decision to close both of my retail storefronts. I mean, I just could not see the support wasn't there. The support wasn't there from the publishers to help retailers through the difficulties. I mean, when you shut an industry down, said, well, fine, no, it'd be kind of like you have a restaurant, and all the farmers said, we're not going to ship any food for 4 months, but have fun with that restaurant. You can't operate if you don't have product. Now, I was doing okay because I have a huge backstock. Had a whole bunch of backstock, available, a huge inventory. But just seeing all these signs, Marvel's being so reticent to get started back up, the way Diamond was handling the problems, and then my employees, it scared them. They all went and found other jobs. So all of a sudden, I went from having a little free time to take on other projects to having 2 stores by myself. I mean, it just got to be an unmanageable situation. And down here, they've got in Arkansas, they instituted a mandatory mask order, where you have to, if you're in a public place inside, you have to wear a mask all the time. So I'm kind of glad I got out when I did, because I'm seeing a lot of bad signs, and watching Diamond deteriorate before our eyes is another bad sign. So I'm glad I don't have that overhead from those 2 retail storefront, rent be paid every month. So I have really limited how much damage can be done to me now. And, hopefully maybe I can expand back again in the future when things get better. But right now, I'm worried that we're looking at the collapse of the comic book industry. It's very possible.
I don't know about the collapse of the industry, but I will say that there are parts of it that I think that will die due to.
Oh yeah, it's a
this. I don't think
fantastic
the
art
industry
form, and I don't
itself.
think the art form will ever die. But the industry as we know it, I think it's in jeopardy.
Yeah, it's change is inevitable at this point, and really the people who are going to survive and thrive on are the people who are going to embrace the fact that things are changing. Will change, no question it's going to change, and those people are going to be okay, and they're going to figure out a way around it. And the people who kind of hook their business on things going back to the way they were, those people are all going to die.
That's the key word, Perch, change. I think we're witnessing the change of the comic book industry. Things aren't going to be the same in a year, but the comic book industry isn't going anywhere. It's changing.
Yeah, changing. I mean, it will be very, very different. And I think it's an interesting time because everything is so up in the air that a lot of giants who are untouchable because of their position and maybe their longevity or their cash flow, whatever it happens to be, many people had established that dominant position over relationships and other things. It's why you had so many of the kind of big old guards screaming when DC broke their and went this other direction, broke the relationship with Diamond, is because they built up a relationship over the other comic shops over years because of these kind of back deals and other things they'd had, and when that collapsed, they saw their power was threatened. That's why you heard so much screaming.
Yeah, you heard all the Comics Pro guys complaining in the same 24-hour time period. The concerted message, this is terrible, and it didn't mean anything.
Yeah, I wish it happened 10 years ago. We'd be in a lot better shape as an industry if it had.
That's true. This was necessary 10 years ago. Honestly, this moment is long overdue, and it's going to be way more painful and take out some people in friendly fire because it was delayed. This has been necessary. It's hard to look at something bad. I don't mean the virus and all. I mean just these changes to the industry has been a necessity, and we've been postponing the pain, and we're going to pay for it now.
So in many ways, it feels like kind of DC Comics. Do you think they foresaw this problem, or do you think they just finally got fed up with Diamond and said we need to be able to deal with someone else?
It was all about saving money. They've got a cheaper deal with their new distributors, and they're just printing to order. They're not dealing with this huge backlist, and they can focus on the book market, young adult novels, and Scholastic. That's in business, it's all about identifying and opening up new markets, and they've found a market that they want to pursue right now, and they're just putting periodicals on almost like neutral.
There's there was so many complaints that DC would get over like say just a 2 or 3 month period that I was talking to some friends of mine that it was mind-boggling, just the amount of damage and everything that Diamond, as far as, receiving books and things like that, how much damage, how many complaints about short ordering and stuff like that. And I think that led to them finally just throwing up their hands because, you can't, when you have one business partner and that one business partner is so incompetent that can't deliver the books on time, can't deliver quality product, that, what else are you going to do? It's just, it finally just reached the end of the road.
If you look at how the comic book industry has contracted since, the 1990s, the last 20 years, I mean, the quantity of books being printed, if this was the 90s, if a book was under 90,000 copies, they'd cancel it. Nowadays, they got a book over 90,000 copies. They're lighting candles and having a celebration. The industry's completely turned around and it's contracted. And it's not all, Diamond has a lot to do with it, but it's not all on Diamond. I remember I used to ask the publishers all the time, why don't you do national advertising? And they're like, oh, we're just $1 billion business. We can't afford to do national advertising. That's all up to you retailers to do it for us. And
they wouldn't even put an ad at the end of their movie. Visit your comic shop. Did you like the Justice League movie? Visit your comic shop. None of them would even take the effort. They couldn't get any interdepartmental synergy that they couldn't put a budget available for a simple message. Did you like Wolverine? Visit your local comic shop. It's all on them.
Yeah, but when they wanted to do digital all of a sudden, they thought every comic book store in America was going to collapse like a chain of tower record stores when music went digital. But instead, all of a sudden, people, because when they went mature back in the late 90s, They got pulled from all the grocery stores, all the 7-Elevens. Here in the South, Walmart wouldn't even carry comics anymore because they considered them obscene. That's actually a quote. They, people didn't think they were being made anymore. So all of a sudden they started advertising digital. People were like, I don't like digital, but hey, they still make comics. I'll go find a real place. So while they're trying to drive us all out of business, our sales went up in print because they were doing national advertising. That just lasted for a little while, and and then now we're starting to drop on our sales again. But that was our last big little burst of increase in sales when we had the national advertising. Another thing too, going back to the movies, they never take advantage of the movies. I mean, when the X-Men movie was number one, the number one selling comic back 20 years ago was Transformers number one from an independent publisher. When all these other movies were coming out from while Kevin Feige was running the Marvel Studios and doing so well, knocking it out of the park with each movie, people come in and say, I want to get the top characters from these Marvel movies. Well, what do you mean Wolverine's a little girl? Okay, well, give me Hulk. Well, what do you mean Hulk's a girl? Well, what about Hawkeye? Hawkeye's a girl. Well, it just go down the road. Everybody they want to buy, they could not buy the character from the movies. They wouldn't make them in the comics. And so they were just completely self-destructing, and they were self-destructing us as they were doing it because they just would not make the product that people wanted to buy. They've been very poor business partners. So it's not all on Diamond. This is there's a lot of hands into the destruction of the comic industry that's been going on for a while now. And the publishers have a lot to do with it too.
It's definitely not all on Diamond. Definitely. Yeah. And underlined completely. It's too many people blame. I mean, Diamond definitely has a piece of this, but they are one piece of a broken pie.
Mm-hmm. They're the one that it's a collection of errors. It's miscommunication completely across the board.
And Marvel's really worried me, and they had a lot to do with my decision to close my store because I got a call from a Marvel sales rep, and she said, "Well, how are your stores doing with being shut down?" I said, "Well, I'm not shut down. I'm open. I just need you guys to make some product for me to sell." And she goes, "Well, you're the only comic book store in America who's still open." I said, "Ma'am, I've got 2 stores. That's 2 right there." She goes, "You're the only one." I just tell you that she's on the self-fulfilling prophecy to say the comic book stores are all out. We can't make product. They're gone. And there were 8 states that were not under a quarantine. So I'm sure I was not the only store in America.
I told them to keep shipping.
So, Wes, you got a super chat here on the screen. This is...
I do.
You can.
So I do want to say, before I get into this, if you're enjoying the channel, it's your first time dropping by, definitely subscribe to Thinking Critical YouTube. If you're enjoying the conversation and you're enjoying the content, definitely give us a thumbs up. And I do want to say thank you very much to Kenneth Dowling for the $20 super chat. Thank you for being so supportive of the channel. It's very generous of you. Something Pert said earlier about eras got me thinking. Some of the Marvel DC books I've really enjoyed reading lately come from the 70s and 80s. Question to the panel: what do you think is the best decade in comics? I would say the 80s. I love it when X-Men were on the top of the game. Teen Titans at the top of the game. Batman was really becoming the character that he is today. So I think it's probably the 80s, maybe the 90s. What say you, Michael Tierney? What's the best era in comic books?
What in the world was that?
Marvel was really kicking it. They were like 2/3 of the marketplace back then. But all the creative people didn't like working with Jim Shooter because he made them turn their work in on time, which I didn't see a problem with that. That's why they weren't number one. It's just there was a rebellion. The artists kind of took over, so we don't need writers. We can write, and they found out they couldn't, and that led to the 90s, where all of a sudden you got all these books with nothing but splash pages all through them. You can read a story in just minutes, and the content really went down. And now you've got a lot of younger writers who are trying to come in and retell stories they liked when they were young. Well, us older guys, we're like, I've read this before, like 20 different versions of the same thing. We're not getting a lot of original content. That's why when they finally introduced some new characters in Batman recently, all of a sudden the sales started popping. You got to give people something new, and the comic book industry hasn't been doing that. Now, the art, I will say, probably is the best it's ever been. The content and the story writing, it's lacking.
All right, so Pele, what do you think is the best era in comics? What's the best decade?
I'm a child of the Bronze Age, so I love my 70s comics. I right at 1970, even before 68, 69, that's my jam, and all the way up through the mid 80s. That's I'd say the 70s, and then second is the 80s, the early 80s. And just absolutely amazing stuff, especially if you love horror comics and you love Marvel. That is the stuff right there. That is the best.
All right, Larry, tell me why the 90s is your favorite decade.
It's the 80s. It's not even close. John Byrne, George Perez, two of my favorite creators of all time. The 80s had it all, but don't dismiss right outside. Just look right outside your window right now. The depth of product, the depth of genre, the amount of quality material that's on the shelves right now, I'd submit that we're in a golden age for quality material. It's just fantastic. You got to weed through a lot of crap, but there's a lot of books out there, but some stuff is just fantastic. I mean, I love the current, that keep throwing out Daredevil. I don't know if I like the current run of Daredevil better than Frank Miller's run. I mean, it's just superb.
It's absolutely great. That's the best comic book on the industry as far as I'm concerned. Yule, what is the best decade?
Man, that's tough. I mean, I would like to qualify talking about today's comics and saying they're good, or maybe the 90s, because like you don't get Sandman if you don't have the 90s, and a lot of what we're getting today is still predicated on or standing on the shoulders of Sandman or a lot of the Vertigo stuff. But I'm going to say 80s because you have John Byrne and Chris Claremont and Marv Wolfman and George Perez, and and that's superhero. And not only that, let's not forget, you also have Mike Grell going over and doing Star Slayer, and then you have Tim Truman with Grimjack. You got Love and Rockets with the Hernandez brothers. You have Dan Clowes doing Lloyd Llewellyn, not 8-Ball.
Eastman and Laird.
Eastman and Laird with Turtles. I mean, the Black and White Boom. You've got Concrete and Dark Horse not just being an Aliens and Predator company. That the 80s is the way to go, I think. It kind of crosses over into the 90s, but it's all 80s. That's the
80s
decade.
Had it all.
Yeah. It's like
all right,
you just have so many different stuff.
No, it is. So I think there's two answers to this. In terms of the content, I think the 80s is absolutely for breadth. It's what it had. Now, every era has had gems and really awesome things in it. And Yule's point about Sandman coming out in the 90s and some of these things, there are amazing comics in the 90s and the 2000s and the last decade. For sure they're there. But in terms of total, the biggest mass, the 80s had a lot of really strong things. They were able to pivot and work really, really well. The other part, the way to answer this, though, would be to say, if you're talking about opportunity, then I do think you could make a solid argument that the opportunities right now in comics maybe are the best they've ever been right now. And why? Because the barrier to actually get a comic out is more possible than it's probably ever been, and there is ways to do it that you have opportunities for people to come in and make a comic that you did not have before, and that shouldn't be overlooked. And what that gives me a lot of confidence on is that you're going to get people who are going to get established, figure out the ropes, get their own methods going on, maybe other distributors pop up, and we're going to see a really good, a lot of good titles emerge. I think a lot of the pieces are in place right now to do a lot of good things in comics, even if we're not seeing that output. I think the big two, the quality is quite a bit down, and that's probably what a lot of people react to when Larry was talking there, but it is... in terms of opportunity, we are in a good moment right now for opportunity. We just need to capitalize on it.
Very well. Thank you very much, Ken Dowling, for supporting the channel. That was a real conversation starter. It sounds like we're kind of all in agreement. The 70s and the 80s were the sweet spot. Obviously the 90s was very instrumental, and people are still drawing on that. But really, you think about what was in the 80s. It's like 4 of the 6 greatest comic runs of the history of the comic industry. It's absolutely insanity.
Oh yeah, and we skipped a lot of stuff too.
Oh, yeah.
That's the thing. So much falls through, and it's like so good.
B and C comics were doing great in that. I mean, you had these things. It's like today when they're trying to roll out new comics with new characters that are untested. The majority of them flop now. It's very hard for them to be successful. But in the 80s, they'd roll out random characters, and it would just work. I mean, a lot of people hail the She-Hulk run is this amazing thing by Byrne, but if you were there at the time, people thought that was crazy for them to do a She-Hulk comic. And why in the world would Byrne go to She-Hulk or Namor? This makes no sense at all. Like, what's he doing there? And you got great comics out of that. I mean, so they were just able to make a lot of the smaller stuff just work.
Yeah. One thing I'll say about the modern age comics coming out now, it's to our detriment the fact that print runs are so low, but to a collector and an investment standpoint, low print runs mean that if there's anything good at all, the value is going to be really good in the future because there's not going to be a lot of them out there. And
We're in the new
probably
short print era.
it.
There's going to be just gold coming out of recent back issues. I mean, certain books from the last year have broken $1,000 mark for third printing of Venom #3.
Mm-hmm. And just think about this amazing Daredevil run that we're getting right now. I think the prints on that are like under 20 or 25,000. That is absolutely insanity for the quality of the book with the art that you're actually getting. Like, people are going to be reading that story and talking about it in 20 years because it is that good. And there's not going to be a lot of comics out there for people to go find.
And that's a good example of difficulty for comic shops having to deal with that. That's our volume. I mean, that's pretty bad that's nationwide numbers. But if you do want to talk about decades, one decade we haven't mentioned that we do need to probably is the 60s. I mean, wow, is that not where the comic book industry as we know it today was created?
Yeah, no, that was a genesis point. And I think that may be where you could draw an interesting parallel to today. And a lot of people look at the 60s and the quality. I mean, there's questionable things that are going on in the industry. There's a lot of comments that are made back there, but it did tee up a lot of what then played out over the next 30 years. And being very optimistic about it, you could argue that right now we're in another period where a lot of things are getting teed up. Some new Kings are being made, some new distribution is happening, and we're going to see a similar thing play out over the next couple decades. I hope so. That'd be a great outcome if that's what we're looking at.
My main problem with the 60s, and I love the Silver Age. I adore the Silver Age. But my main problem with it is just especially DC, was just the weird-ass continuity, the strange stories. I mean, you could pick up a Superman book. It made absolutely no sense, was not connected with anything that's ever happened before or after, and it never, ever. It's just, whoa, what the hell was this? What did I just read? And, were they doing a little weed? What were they doing? What does this make any sense?
Yeah, I like their stories because as we know,
the answer is yes.
So that's what kind of as far as the 60s are concerned, just sort of really disjointed and weird stuff. But when there was brilliance, it was amazing. So
I do want to say thank you very much to Josh, aka SSJ Future Go Ahead, 62093 for the $4.99.
Hey, Josh.
He says late 90s to early 2000 DC, 96 to 2009. Chuck Dixon's Batman family stuff is almost untouchable. Robin, Nightwing, Birds of Prey. Certainly, Chuck Dixon was very influential on the entire Bat family and really just action comics in general. The man knew how to put action on page and keep you coming back for more. Yul, what did you think about Chuck Dixon's work on the Bat family?
I'm a big Chuck Dixon fan. I'm not a big Batman fan, actually, though. His Birds of Prey is Birds of Prey as far as I'm concerned. His Nightwing was really well done. It was like there was some really wacky villains that he made up for this, and it just was very reminiscent of kind of how you perceive old Batman might have been if you were reading it at the time. I also want to say, and I've said it on the show a couple times, that Christopher Priest did Steel, and I'm only now finally reading all of them. Those aren't going to get collected anytime soon, and they're freaking amazing. Dennis Cohen does the artwork, and you read stuff now, and you're like, oh wow, this is so crazy. Some of the stuff that's going on. Priest was doing it already. He had Steel is like kissing gonna kiss his friend in the car. And police come, and it's just a really cool scene, and it's not cool. Steel. I like DC in the 90s.
Yeah, there's some good stuff there. There was, and funny, it's because a lot of the contemporary topics that are, in the headlines today and people want to touch on, you see a lot of creators talking about, we have to represent this and get into the comics. It's like, yeah, but you did in the 90s and actually handled it with a lot more delicacy and grace too.
Yeah, it's good. DC was doing good stuff. Unfortunately, it's kind of like their quality of the comics just kind of. I mean, it was the glossy paper, but it's very flimsy and not really aesthetically pleasing when you look at it initially. But I was a big Man of Steel fan. Louise Simonson, she just got in the Eisner Hall of Fame, by the way.
Yeah.
Deserved.
She was
Well deserved.
Yeah, totally. I mean, Wheezy, she did all those Fumettis in the Kazar comic books.
Wheezy was
Yeah, I loved her.
All right,
She's
so
cool.
guys, I do want to say thank you very much to Josh for supporting the channel. We do have another $5 super chat from Brian Ball from Rags. Speaking of the Rags 15-page prologue sales for $600, really nuts when you think about it. That is nuts. I can't believe you made that. Somebody wants to buy it for $600. But some of those early Rags comics that were very low print, they were kind of print on demand, are absolutely very rare. And they're definitely in demand. So if you can get your hands on one of those, you got yourself.
We just got back.
Dang.
Yeah, we just got back
if it's
about a
print on
dozen
demand, just
from
demand one.
CGC. We just got back a dozen of them from CGC, 9.8s and 9.6s, and they're just blowing out for $400 or $500 for a first print #1. So it's like, boom.
Oh.
You know.
Brian Ball brings the heat with Rags. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. We do have another $5 super chat from James D. Anderson, 1983 to 1993, Dark Knight Returns, Watchmen, 300, The Crow, Peter David, Chris Claremont. The art was the best it's ever was. Barry Windsor Smith, Jim Lee, Monsters. There's definitely some good stuff in there.
Absolutely. No, that was a glory time of a lot of really strong bets paying off. It was due to a lot of people. I think people oversimplify at times that it was Jim Shooter created all this. It was not. It was multiple companies. It was multiple people. It was the industry really firing on all cylinders. DC had gone through some real heartache in the late 70s with all the trim backs and layoffs they had done, and so the position was right from about 83 to 93 to have a really amazing era in comics, and it produced just incredible work. And I hope we can get another era like this. We haven't had it, but a lot of things just clicked. And
unfortunately, everyone's trying to recreate all of that stuff right now rather than trying to do the next Watchmen. Right. They're just trying to be Watchmen.
Well, yeah, they're trying to kind of it's nostalgia. It's like we're going to go back and we're going to mine this stuff and clone it, and that doesn't work. You need to actually create. If you're going to recreate this era, you actually have to create it. You can't just clone it. We've seen too many spin-offs and too many kind of nodbacks to this time. But a lot of the people writing comics and creating right now, many weren't alive in this era, and have only a vague knowledge. I mean, when we got like Tom Brevoort who proudly talks about the comics he didn't buy in this era. I mean, what are you going to do?
Mm-hmm. So I do want to say,
jumps out. Peter David. Was there a writer that he was at the top of his game? He was industry standard. He was arguably one of the hottest writers of the era. Then he get kind of caught up in squabbles with other creators and politics, and kind of his career kind of just fell off a cliff. Maybe that's a good analogy for current creators, to focus on their work, not to get caught up in all kinds of politics and preaching and fighting with other creators, or maybe their careers could kind of fall off a cliff.
Man, that's a great point. Actually, I just for those of you who don't know, Peter David had this feud going with Eric Larson and Todd McFarlane right when they hopped over to Image, and it consumed him. It took so much of his time. They did a little stunt at one of the comic shows and everything else, and you did see a drop in his quality during that period. And it was that the things outside of comics getting so big as a bubble to distract, and it's an absolute amazing lesson for people now, because it hurt everyone. I think it hurt Larson, it hurt McFarlane, and it hurt Peter David during that period.
Hurt the industry.
It wasn't healthy at all.
Yeah, Peter David was #1, arguably, for a long period of time. He was the voice for writing.
Sure.
He was also a company man, and he was also kind of like he was a very loud writer versus an artist,
right.
And that was kind of also obviously writers hate artists. We all know this. They love them, of course,
Seth Rollins.
No, I'm just joking. No, I mean, it's obviously, a lot of work that goes in, and, who owns what and who created what and how much effort is going in is always going to be, there's going to be a conversation about that. Peter David's versus McFarlane and Larson were very loud at the time.
Uh-huh.
And, it hurt him. Sure.
That'd be a great thing to go into at some later point. Anyway, sorry for derailing us there.
It's fine, guys. I do want to say thanks to James Dean Anderson for the $5 super chat. A great point right there. And I do want to shout out Deadshot Dookie for the $9.99 super chat. Great show as usual. Perch, are you launching a comic on Indiegogo soon? Wes mentioned you were working on something. Are you going to go Indiegogo, or are you going to go another route, Perch?
I'm going another route. So I do have a comic. It will be out next year at the beginning. It's about a third of the way done now. It'll be about 100 pages. So it's going to be large.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, it should be nice. But I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to crowdfund for it. I'm going to finish it and get it prepared, and then I'm going to figure out how to sell it, market it. But my goal is not to do the big crowdfunding route. I want to get this thing out here. So we'll see where
me down for 100, Perch.
Oh, that's nice of you, Larry. That's too many. You don't want that many. But
I do.
He bought 500 new Warriors. Of course he wants 100 Perch
really.
comics.
There you go.
Never showed up.
I will
There
put
was
this
a
on.
pretty cool article about it.
I promise, absolutely promise, though, that I will. If however I market this thing, it's going to be done before I start collecting any cash for it. So,
I have suggestions for you if you want to talk about it.
yeah, for sure.
Boom. So thank you very, very much to Deadshot Dookie for showing up. You're one of the regulars here. Really appreciate you supporting the channel. And we also have JDC with a $5 super chat. The $5 holler. Everyone has their own golden age of comics era. Mine are the 80s to the pre-crisis 80s. Definitely, thank you very much. And we've been discussing all that. And thank you for sharing your favorite era in comics. And thank you very much for supporting the channel. I really appreciate it. So we do have one final comment that I wanted to talk about from the viewers that were on the video. And I wonder if people are noticing this. This is what Ron B says. I have been slowly moving away from Marvel and towards DC, but this stuff lately is accelerating the process. Do you think that Marvel not really coming into the market after the shutdown, kind of being slow rolling it, whereas DC kind of jumped in the market with some big events? Death Metal, Deceased is coming out right now. We got Joker War. They all seem to have a lot of interest. Do you think Marvel will be number 2 for any type of prolonged period of time? Larry, it seems like you're not on board.
Well, Donny Cates, right up there with Death Metal, Thor, Venom. I mean, those aren't going away right now. Empyre, shockingly great sales for me for the past 2 weeks, even dipping back a month, pulling those number zeros up. I don't know. I don't see it.
Yeah, Thor and Venom have been absolutely explosive. Especially Thor. It's shocked me. I was fortunate enough to be able to reorder on some of those because I got caught flat-footed. But there's still, as long as Cates is at Marvel, I think there'll always be the good argument that Marvel is number 1 because he just. I'm not going to say he can do no wrong because he's written some stinkers before, but his volume of quality is far and away above all the other writers. So
the MCU is it's a passive, constant commercial for Marvel too. I mean, the act of somebody getting into the MCU and watching those movies draws them into comic books. I mean, DC doesn't have anything like that going for it. I'd argue that the overall stable of Marvel characters is more popular than DC. I mean, they've got Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman. They've got the icons, but overall, Marvel more popular.
If they would actually capitalize on Iron Man and some of the others, and I heard that Iron Man is going to be getting some of his issues ironed out, but
Dr. Doom was up for an Eisner. Did you guys see that? That's the new Iron Man. I mean, I'm excited.
But
I agree.
But yeah, they're some of the characters though that are MCU driven though just do not translate to comics right now. It's like some of the things that Michael was talking about earlier. They just do not translate, and I think that's a serious problem. And if Marvel doesn't address this with the next phase, then comics are going to get caught out again.
So, Michael, do you think that Donny Cates is single-handedly keeping Marvel above water right now? Is he the only one selling for Marvel?
Well, I mean, Marvel right now, I think they ought to be concerned because, one, they're not making the product. DC is outselling them. Marvel does have, material that people want to buy. People want to buy Marvel, but Marvel doesn't seem to want to sell to them. I think another thing too they're going to have to watch out for, and this is a little bit of a concern, is this phase 2 of the movies, because the movies have been driving a lot of the comic book sales for quite a while now, and the phase 2 of the movie seems to be going in the direction of the social justice warrior trend that Marvel did back when they had Axel Alonso running Marvel. And I'll tell you what, the sales for Marvel were abysmal when that happened. People just, I couldn't cut my orders fast enough to keep up with all the people who were just leaving the books because they weren't making the characters people wanted.
Have you seen the back issue prices of some of those, though? The social justice warrior phase that wasn't selling well. Have you seen the back issue prices that have come out of that era? I mean,
oh, good. I'm holding on to them.
You're not getting burnt.
Actually, I saw those.
There are some people like the Miss Marvel first appearance and some of the others. But the problem is you have a very small section
Avengers.
of collectors that are paying large amounts of money for those, but the actual established collectors are passing them by because they just don't like the characters and they don't.
That's a good analogy right there. Because I'm still a lot going on eBay too, getting some good money off of some of those first appearances like early Miss Marvel. But overall, my customers, they just weren't buying it.
I think you'll get some nostalgia afterwards on those if you stick with them. Because you know how it is. I dropped off the title, and now I want to get all of them. You know.
Now, some people have talked about Miles Morales. I don't classify Miles Morales as a woke character. He's a really good character, and I like the way that the Ultimate Fallout 4, where everybody's talked about where it's went wild and crazy. But there's a reason for it. The video game coming out. He does connect better with a lot of the new fresh audiences out there, and he's going to have a very strong impact on Marvel going forward. So, I don't classify him with the woke characters. I think that he's going to be strong going forward, and I think that he's going to stand the test of time where a lot of the others just simply aren't.
1 year ago today, fellas.
Yeah, Miss Marvel just can't even sell books. Can't even sell new comics. So, but Miles does.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Larry.
1 year ago today, fellas, at San Diego Comic-Con, they announced Lady Thor, and the back issue, a cover price book that nobody was looking for, turned into a $70 book for months, and it started, in my opinion, a 1 year modern comic just trend of all
and now
the
it's down to
Marvel
25.
stuff just explosion. That's fine, but you can't ignore, you take the money when you can get the money. I mean, will there be an announcement this afternoon about the MCU that is going to translate to my stock being able to put online and translate into silly money? That's what I'm waiting for. What are they going to announce today? I think something's coming.
I do not. But I do think that the point you're making is valid. You get these big moments and these big announcements, and they can translate to things. I think there are issues that spike. I don't think as a whole. I mean, I don't think fear itself is going to go through the roof in 5 years in terms of numbers. But there will be some for sure that will go out, and we'll see. We'll see what all happens with it. This market is
ready
right now. Yeah. Go ahead.
So I do want to say thank you very much to James Dean Anderson for the $5 super chat. Thank you for supporting the channel. It's very generous of you. Perch, sell it. I think he's talking about your comic book in a couple of parts. 100-page books don't really raise more than a 48 to 60 page book, just burning money on printing and shipping.
It's true. No, it's very true.
Tell us what it's about. Tell us.
I'll put the pitch up. It's a big pitch. I'll just wait. It's a crazy pitch. But it is. I'm not trying to get rich off of it. So I just want to tell a complete story. But I do have longer term plans. So I'll post some stuff up. I'll break the news here on this channel.
You're gonna break it here on Thinking Critical?
Absolutely. I'll break it right here.
Oh, I appreciate that.
Gotta do a whole show on that.
Dean Anderson for supporting the channel. I really appreciate it. And we do have another super chat from Ryan Wilson, $9.99 super chat. DC best era was the 2000s, Green Lantern and Flash Rebirth, Infinite Crisis, Final Crisis, Morrison's Batman, Superman, Hush, Red Hood, John Superman, JSA, Hawkman, Titans, and Green Lantern runs. And then you got Green Arrow by Kevin Smith. This is some pretty good comic books in there, Perch.
Great.
Yeah. No, I think that's true. I think DC slipped into that area. Yeah, I mean, as I was thinking about the 80s and the early 90s, I mean, that really, DC had some amazing stuff out of the time, but Marvel was owning it during that period. I think DC is a little bit harder to pin down on a particular decade. I think they've had things kind of scattered throughout. I think we can pinpoint kind of eras where they've been terrible, but they've had things spread out a little bit more. Marvel's been a little bit more uneven, I would say, of having kind of a lot of good quality in one set of time, and then maybe there's an argument to be made there around some of the writers and the editorial across the
like
board.
Marvel is an editor-driven comic.
Yeah.
Where DC is writer-driven.
I think that would be an interesting thing to go into. I think you could make that argument because you've had different editors, and again, people always go towards shooter, but you have to look at it a little bit more broadly. It's sometimes the things that get teed up before the editor-in-chief hits is what really creates the value. It's not like a new editor comes in or a new editor-in-chief comes in and suddenly everything's perfect. There's a lot of groundwork that goes into it, but there's been different eras, and you can really see some. Maybe the argument could be made that Marvel benefits from strong editorial and DC tends to benefit when the writers are able to get away from editorial. I don't know. That would be an interesting topic to go into.
All right. Does anyone else have anything to say? I'll tell you what's best about the 2000s. It was basically Jeff Johns wrote every character at DC at least once.
There you go. Yeah, Jeff Johns is a really strong. I guess you could say impetus for saying that the 90s, that the early 2000s were so strong for them because they've not had anybody since.
I'd love to have him back.
Yeah, they need him back. They desperately need him back. I love DC during that time, and it's just not been the same.
He seems to have a connection with the characters, or at least an understanding what makes the characters special, and translates it well to page. Unfortunately, not everyone else seems to have that talent with the entire roster of DC Comics, except for maybe Peter Tomasi, right? He seems to
there's a lot of people that were working there during that time that aren't at DC anymore. I'm thinking of like Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale for sure.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a lot of the artists for whatever reasons aren't around there anymore, and that kind of sucks too. And it's like their new crop is, there's some good people or they're flashy, but it's just not, probably as good as early 2000s over at DC now.
Peter Tomasi, from what I understand, people within the company had designs on him being an editor and were put out when he wanted to become a creator, a writer. And I think that that's hurt him politically within the company because he is a masterful writer of DC. And I wish that people could look beyond their inter-company politics and, elevate that man to the level that he deserves. I mean, he's also somebody who has a complete mastery of the DC universe. Sorry, he's not running things behind the scenes for you guys, being an editor, and that's what you had banked on. But I mean, make that man a focal point of something.
Yeah, he's good. I mean, and yeah, he's like connecting from the 2000s to today.
Yep,
still, at least he's got a job.
Yeah, but his stories are great. He's
a
great writer.
He's very underappreciated, or I don't know. You're not going to see him on the short list of the Eisners, probably. I don't think anytime soon.
No,
but he does like really solid work, and yeah, it's a shame. I mean, those are the kind of guys the kind of people you really want to have stick around in your company. Someone that can do good things with things.
I do want to say thank you very much to Ryan Wilson for supporting the channel. We do have a €5.49 super chat. Many pros of the 80s and 90s started in the indie self-publishing. Are DC and MV missing out, ignoring Indiegogo and Comicsgate?
I think they're missing out on talent acquisition from anywhere. I think that there's and one of the things that C.B. Cebulski was supposed to do is kind of find this new talent, but it seems like Marvel's approach is find people who work for cheap more than necessarily find new talent. That's
exactly.
A very different search. So I think that a lot of the big companies are missing out on looking at people up and coming from the indies. It's way too click driven. It's you look at 6 people all coming from the same comic shop. That's a very shallow pool to be pulling from. I get that you get some people from Bleeding Cool, or you get the kind of Matt Rosenbergs and Donny Cates and Kelly Thompsons, who are, people who shilled for your comics when they were writing, at the news sites, and now they're writing comics. But this isn't healthy, and it's not really, curating a good indie, upswing of talent. And what you see is these people get into the business, and they immediately start doing things like attacking each other and stealing projects from others, and it's a very vicious cycle. So I think they're definitely missing out ignoring these books. And I think the whole Comicsgate bit, I mean, people are too obsessed over that label. You got to start looking past the label at the people. There are people in there who probably do abhorrent things and harass, and there are people who are just normal people. And by lumping it all into one group, you're missing out on a lot of talent, and it's just ignorant. You don't need to.
Yeah, it's like the absurdity with Jay Lee. I mean, he did a cover. He did a commission. He was paid, commissioned to do a cover, and then some jackhole goes and just tries to cancel him, and over just doing his job, just doing a paid job, and that's retarded, and it just can't be. We can't allow that kind of stuff to continue anymore.
And if you want to hear that take, Perch or Pele, we're going to talk about this on Tuesday, right?
Oh, yeah. That's going to be that. Oh, I'm building up for it. I've got my salt.
I do have a video coming out. Aaron Sparrow and I talk about the Tom King, Jay Lee controversy that happened yesterday, and that will be out at 5 p.m. tonight. Hopefully, everyone will enjoy that. I think we're almost out of time, guys. We had a lot of stuff to talk about. We certainly had a lot of people chime in. We had a lot of good stuff from the super chats, and I want to say thank you very much to everyone who helps for supporting the channel. Michael, I'm sorry I gave you a bad start time. I did not account for you being Central Time. I didn't put the Eastern Standard Time, but I appreciate you showing up for the last hour. And next time, I'll do better.
We appreciate you being here. It's really nice to have you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
Michael
also,
knows he's on mute.
we got another. We have another super chat. We do. This one's from Brian Ball. You think the way that Marvel DC creators attack everyone, are they pushing creators away? Oh, they're certainly pushing customers and other creators, and I think that's what they want. I think, like I said, I think they want the world's smallest anthill all to themselves as they weed out all the people who think so.
I think the impact, we talk about fans being pushed away. I think the creators being pushed away is the bigger impact. I think a lot of fans will come back in many cases if the story sounds hot or if something, a lot of people forgive. Not everybody, but more than they let on. But the damage done to the industry with pushing creators away, I think, is definitely the bigger one. I mean, you just get a lot of disconnects going on there, and it makes the whole industry a lot more incestuous. I think that's a major problem that people ignore.
Well, it's not like Jay Lee can't go and just get a commission, overcharge for a commission piece instead of working for DC,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this guy is going to be able to go and do something in some other artistic fashion elsewhere. We're lucky to have this guy, and you're trying to say, oh, I hate you. Get out of here.
Absolutely.
It's like, what are you doing? His covers sell, and they're beautiful.
What is this flea?
Whether they're inside or not.
Tom King is a flea. Tom King is a flea compared to Jay Lee's, body of work and what he's done in the industry. And it's almost like, just being attacked by this rabid little chihuahua when you're a 600-pound, Great Dane. What?
It's rough.
Tom King made a big mistake there around, it's the first day of San Diego Comic-Con. DC wants some news. All the comic companies want some news to promote their books, to get excitement back in. It's having to be virtual. That's going to hurt things. They want the comic industry to get back on your feet. To wait for the first day of the Comic-Con and launch into a Twitter controversy that then is going to be the headline that Newsarama and CBR and Bleeding Cool and others run with, you took the oxygen out of the room for a lot of other projects from your own company and other companies that are trying to just get things promoted. And instead, we made it about the hate group. All you did was you increased funding capabilities for that quote unquote hate group. And it was disastrous for the company, for the industry, and it was pointless. It was a pointless thing to do. Whether you agree with him or you disagree with him, that was a pointless move.
Yeah.
I agree with you, Perch. All right, Perch, do you have anything you want to say before we wrap this up? We've only got a couple minutes left.
No, so it's a great conversation. I like that. I like we're thinking about this. It's been interesting to see the rollout of Diamond. I hope they're not going to vanish this year, like Larry was speculating on. But I think hopefully we can get past a lot of this nonsense and move on to what are the key steps that are going to help this industry. I'm surprised that there hasn't been more willingness to really discuss those options. People are still treating this like everything is fine and it will just kind of bounce back to normal. I don't think it's quite sunk in on the publishers that it's not going to bounce back to normal. I think the retailers get that pretty clear right now, but I don't know that the publishers do. And the sooner they can get to that realization, the better it can be.
Mm-hmm. All right, the curmudgeon of Critical himself, Paley, we will be talking about the Jay Lee Tom King situation. We're also going to talk a little bit about the recent Batgirl issue and probably Bendis's Action Comics this week, because there's a lot of worse stuff to talk about in those two comics.
Yeah, I've got my salt block ready. It's sitting over here next to my desk. I wanted to say something real quick. I'm not people that are worried about print comics going away, new print comics going away. Don't, because although we will see comics moving more to digital, as far as just their average run of the mill type of B title or something like that, that's going to be moving to digital. There's always going to be a prestige. I hate using the word prestige, but there's always going to be a market there for higher quality published print comics, and that's really where it's moving to. And I hope that means a higher quality print quality. But these comics are going to be around. There's going to be a print comics at least for as long as I'm still alive. But I don't see them going away anywhere. So just don't sweat that. Enjoy the comics you enjoy, and we'll be here to talk about it.
I do want to say thank you to James Dean Anderson for the $5 super chat. Thank you for supporting the channel. Tom King made Batman unreadable. Absolutely. I think that Thinking Critical, when it's all done, will be a monument to Tom King's ineptitude with writing and storytelling and all the stupid shit he's doing on social media, because I'm definitely covering that as well. Batman, attacking an artist making money on art is like attacking a singer for singing a song you don't like, or for singing to an audience that you don't like. So, what is he not supposed to take the gig? He's supposed to be, he's got to support his family. He is a professional artist. If he's getting paid a professional rate, he should probably just, if he chooses to, he should be able to draw whatever he wants for whoever he wants. And I can agree more with you. I go on a pretty damn good rant on it tonight. Yule, can you put the sunglasses on? Can you go heel on me? I want you to shoot.
I have to anyway. Have you noticed this? Are we talking about Tom King when I'm shooting?
No. I want you to shoot on me. Tell me what a worthless loser I am.
No, I would never do anything like that. I really appreciate everything you've been doing on this channel. Inviting me on has been a pleasure. This has been the one of the shining moments of this whole COVID thing, is being able to come on here and talk to people and actually grow my own fantastic comics channel. I just want to say one thing: update your poll lists. There you go. And I do want to say thank you, everyone, for joining us. Thank you for being very cordial in the chats. I know it can get a little bit heated in there, but it looked like everyone was having a good time. A lot of great comic book debate going on over there while we were talking comics over here. Great panel, and we'll see you all next weekend. Salam Po.
Take it easy.
Love y'all. Take care. Wash your ass.
$2 super chat. In fact, Ethan Van Skyver pays well. Worth noting.
Money.
There you go.
You got to pay the bills. You have no help.
Pay the bills.
You got to pay the bills.
If he's paying the rate, he gets the art, as far as I'm concerned. Wash your ass, everybody.
Ass. Yep.